The series begins with some rather harsh news that informs us that the rate of rainfall has significantly decreased worldwide, not to mention that the rivers across the entire planet have dried up. The unfortunate thing is that, my friend, the planet's water supply has also decreased by 40%. And not only that, but mortality rates, especially among children, have increased significantly due to the widespread contaminated water. This has led people everywhere to hold large protests all over the world for water. Water is now being distributed in a specific way. It is distributed through cards, each card having a different rank, meaning that the rank of your card determines the amount and purity of the water you will receive. The higher the rank of your card, the better the water you get, and so on. But after 5 years of all this, my friend, the government started to act, and now President Kim has called the astronomer and biologist Song because he wants her for a mission to the moon at the space station. And by the way, Song was initially very opposed to this mission, but when she found out that the mission was at the Balhae station, she agreed immediately without thinking. We will find out why later. In general, Song then went to the Space and Navigation Administration building to attend a meeting there to understand more about the mission. Before Song entered the meeting, she stopped, feeling sad, at the memorial for the 117 space crew members who died at the Balhae station 5 years ago due to radioactive contamination. Yes, she nodded, Captain Han said to her and greeted her. By the way, Captain Han will be in charge of the space mission, and he is very upset about the crew members who died. He advised Song not to go on the mission because it would be very dangerous. However, Song didn't like this advice and left. After that, the rest of the crew arrived, and Lieutenant Ryu was with them. Interestingly, Ryu is a very famous elite lieutenant in the army, but he volunteered for this mission. In general, everyone started getting to know each other and then went to the meeting. There, Mr. Khan was explaining to them that the Balhae space station was shut down 5 years ago after a radiation leak occurred there. Since then, the station has been closed. He informs the crew that their mission is to retrieve a very important sample from there before the station is permanently closed. This mission, by the way, is supposed to be completed within 24 hours, but no more than that. They also learn that the sample is contained in a capsule to protect it from the strange temperatures. The point is, Song-jo at that time asked Mr. Kim what exactly the sample was. President Choi replied to her, saying that even they do not know what the sample is because all the information was lost in the incident that happened 5 years ago. This did not please Song-jo, nor did it please anyone on the crew. But Choi tried to reassure her and said that they really don't know anything about this sample. After that, Song was appointed as the person responsible for any decision related to the sample, while Han was appointed as the leader of the entire mission. And that's it. The next day, everyone went to their spaceship to set off. At this moment, Odi, the co-pilot's assistant, came to switch with him at the last moment. But at that time, they prepared themselves, and then the spacecraft moved and left the planet. After a while, the spacecraft was already communicating with the lunar orbit, and everything was fine until a malfunction occurred in the spacecraft's outer structure. This terrified the entire crew, and what scared them even more was that the landing system was disabled. And here, the commander requested an emergency landing on the moon, as without quick landing, they risked destruction. The emergency landing was executed, and now the spacecraft descended rapidly to land on the moon. The problem was that during this descent, crew member Hong experienced a malfunction with his seat and couldn't fasten his seatbelt for impact protection. So now, the spacecraft is landing with full force on the moon's surface. And there wasn't a problem. The issue was that the spacecraft landed close to the edge of a large hill, so everyone needed to get out quickly before the spacecraft fell off this edge, especially since the spacecraft had already started to fall. This caused the spacecraft to shake from the inside, and suddenly its glass was about to break. Not only that, but Sung-jik was about to fall through the broken glass, but thankfully, the commander saved her. All the crew members exited the spacecraft and descended onto the surface, but Huang, who couldn't fasten his seatbelt, was severely injured and suffered fractures due to the impact of the landing. He couldn't descend. The crew is currently about 7.5 kilometers away from the Balhae station, which is, by the way, a very long distance because moving on the moon is very difficult, my friend, due to gravity and the suits they are wearing. Suddenly, without any warning, the spacecraft is teetering on the edge and is completely destroyed, which is a big problem because without it, from the second. But the commander now ordered them to move to the station. There, they will be able to communicate with the Space Administration to send them a rescue craft. Indeed, everyone has now started moving towards the station. Can you imagine how difficult this operation was? It was even more difficult for Huang, who couldn't move because of his broken leg. But several crew members helped him. After a while, they were getting close to reaching the station, and unfortunately, Huang couldn't endure any longer. He sat on the ground because he couldn't breathe and started bleeding from his mouth. He literally died, and all the crew members were saddened. At this point, the leader Han told them to leave Huang here and that they would take him when they return because, by the way, they need to move quickly as the oxygen is running out. As a result, everyone started running towards the station. After a while, the oxygen was almost depleted for all the crew members, which made them dizzy, and they collapsed on the ground until they finally reached the station's gate. They quickly entered one after the other. There, they recharged their suits with oxygen. After that, Sochan, who is, by the way, the most skilled engineer among the crew, activated the pressure relief system to adjust the gravity so the rest of the crew could move easily. And then my friend Basi, along with the crew, started moving again to head to the command room in the station. So as they walk, they find the dead body of an American astronaut, and they are shocked. The bigger shock is that the signs on the astronaut indicate that he drowned, which is impossible because there is no water on the moon. However, the crew's doctor confirms that he indeed drowned. But my friend, they continue on their way to complete the mission quickly and return to Earth. In this situation, Sochan shocks them all and says the level of radiation pollution here is normal, and therefore it is impossible that it killed anyone. Songka, when she heard this, said the government lied to us. She then told Commander Han that strange things are happening at this station. We need to perform an autopsy on the body we saw to understand. Unfortunately, Commander Han refused this and told her that our mission is simply to retrieve the sample. And that is the most important thing. After that, he and the others proceeded. They reached the control room and activated the power in the station. This restarted all devices. Unfortunately, the communication device with Earth was still malfunctioning, delaying the rescue vehicle. So Commander Han asked them to focus on the primary mission. From here, Sochan reiterated, still surprised that there was no radioactive contamination present. Without hesitation, Song removed her helmet to prove to the others that Sochan's statement was correct. Indeed, everyone was convinced when they saw that she neither died nor suffocated or anything, and consequently, they also began to remove their helmets. The air in the station was completely purified. After a while, Sochan explained the station's map to the others, pointing out that the areas marked in red on the map were restricted zones. This meant that anyone wanting to enter these areas needed a level 1 clearance. He also emphasized that the samples were present and divided across 3 warehouses. At the station here, Commander Han is now dividing the task into 3 teams, with each team going to a warehouse to collect a sample. One team is led by Commander Han, another by Lieutenant Liu, and the last one, of course, by Jung. Currently, we are with Commander Han's team, who, by the way, have just reached the door of the 3rd warehouse. They are very surprised because they find the door locked and there is no power in the station's circuits. Immediately, Commander Han takes action and starts to forcefully open the door without any introductions. The problem is that when he fully opens the door, he finds a lot of corpses of crew members who were supposed to have died 5 years ago. Quickly, Huang captures a video of the corpses so that Sungjo and the others can see this terrifying scene. It's important to note that it was assumed they died due to drowning. This prompted Sungjo, my friend, to request an explanation of these corpses to understand what happened. However, we will still refuse and focus on the main mission. Why is Sung so insistent on examining these corpses? We know that Sung's sister was the head of the researchers who died in space here, so she wanted to find her sister's body and also understand the cause of her death and everyone else's. Currently, when they entered the storage, they didn't find any literal samples present. The same thing happened in the 2nd storage where Ryu's team was located. At that time, Sochan noticed that there was a dead astronaut holding a sample in his hand. He was very happy and tried to take this sample, hoping it would be full. However, the twist here is that he did this by leaning on the corpse's stomach, which caused very small particles to come out of the corpse's mouth and enter Sochan's eye without him noticing. This rendered all his efforts useless because the sample in the corpse's hand turned out to be empty. At the same moment, in Zhang's team, we find Jisoo puzzled by what he sees on the radar. After noticing a signal for a living being other than them on the map, can we find out if he goes now to see what this signal is? Afterwards, Jisoo tells Song that something strange is happening here, so it's best for her to go and take samples from the corpses we saw to learn what's in them, and he'll cover for her because Commander Han doesn't know. Song agrees with him and runs to the corpses, and after she leaves, Jisoo laughs. He gives a laugh, enters the warehouse, closes the door behind him, and breaks his radio. He starts to find the warehouse completely empty with no samples at all. While he's searching, his flashlight falls under the table and turns off. He tries to retrieve it and feels like someone passed in front of him, which scares him a lot. At the same moment, Song communicates with the warehouse in the bodies, but she finds the door is now closed, and Jong calls on the radio, but Jisoo doesn't respond to him, so she realizes that he is currently far from her. He asks her to return to him quickly. Meanwhile, Jisoo, who is now his friend, manages to find a sample. He is very surprised to find out that the sample is just ordinary water. He takes it to leave the warehouse, but as he opens the door to exit, he doesn't make it because something pulls him back. By the way, Song had also arrived and was terrified when she saw him being dragged in front of her. She quickly entered the warehouse to find out what was happening, and from there came the shock. She found Jisoo hanging on the wall, taking his last breaths and dying. Song, of course, is horrified, but she notices the sample that was in his hand. So she approaches slowly to take it, but then Young arrives and is shocked when he sees Jisoo's body. Consequently, Han and the rest of the crew, who have all gathered now, are informed. Dr. Hwang immediately explains to Captain Han that Jisoo died due to suffocation and a broken neck. Captain Han now feels an unnatural worry from the doctor's words, so he goes to talk with Song. She was shocked, and he asked her why Jisoo was alone in the warehouse and why she wasn't with him. He was upset as he spoke to her and took the camera from her suit to find out what happened. Once he played it, both he and Jung saw everything that occurred. Then, he started to feel afraid and realized the idea that there are hidden passages connected to each other. He thought that the person who appeared on the radar might be using these hidden passages from another side. By the way, the team had already returned to the command room, and Taek noticed that Sujin was sitting far away. So, when they tried to talk to him, suddenly waterfalls of water started pouring out of Sujin's mouth. Everyone was surprised, and they called Han to inform him about Sujin's situation. They also contacted Dr. Hwang, who was rushing over, and she asked them all to stay away from him and put on protective suits because she was worried that he might have contracted a disease and that the infection could spread to all of them. Everyone put on their suits until Hwang arrived and began to examine him. You notice that Sujin is suffocating and unable to breathe, so she makes an incision in his neck to help him breathe. However, a lot of water also comes out of this incision. She tried to draw blood from him, but found that the syringe was also filling with water. Unfortunately, Sujin continues to expel water from every part of his body and feels like he is drowning in a deep sea, and in the end, he dies. Then, the situation becomes clear to everyone to avoid what is happening, and it's not just Jung who is affected, because all the characters were oppressed and terrified. Then he goes and talks to Jung, asking for his help to have Hwang perform an autopsy on Sujin's body, to understand how he died, as he died, in the same way that everyone else did. Here, Jung is overwhelmed with grief, but agrees. Consequently, Sujin's body is transferred to the medical section of the station, and Hwang begins the autopsy. By the way, Song is with her, who now enters the station and takes the opportunity to look at her sister's file to understand what happened here, and indeed, she is able to find the file but cannot access it because she needs a level 1 clearance. So, she tells Lon, who is, by the way, one of the team, to come with her to examine the other bodies. She starts collecting many samples from them to analyze. After some time, Lon returns, and the autopsy on Sujin's body is completed. Song now learns that through the autopsy, it was discovered that there was a foamy mucus that blocked the airway, and water had seeped into his body to the extent that his entire body was literally filled with water. There was no evidence to honestly understand how this water got there in general, but anyway. My friend, on the other hand, Captain Han, took Yong and Do, who is, by the way, one of the crew, and they returned to the corridors. They all went down there and started looking for the person who was with them at the station. By the way, this person's signal started appearing again on the radar, indicating that this person had passed through another corridor above them. From there, Han and the others followed the signal on the radar until they reached the door, but it was locked because it required a level 1 authorization. They then returned to the command room. There, Ryo told them the communication device from Earth was completely broken and someone had to fix it outside. Han told them he'd document it because he needed to urgently communicate with President Choi. After that, he went to the medical section with Song to find out the results of Sochin's autopsy, but Song informed him. There was no explanation, but it was easy, and he left. Then, he prepared to fix the communication device outside the station. He secured himself with a rope and descended slowly. Everything was fine. Suddenly, he felt a strong jolt. The elevator started working on its own, rocketing upwards towards him. If it hit him, it would kill. Thankfully, he moved away from the elevator and continued. To catch his breath as he moved, he noticed the elevator falling on him from above. Han asks Yong to throw the rope he was holding. He takes the rope and ties it to a spot far away from the elevator. This move, indeed, allows Han to avoid the elevator, but he takes strong hits and severe shocks as he falls, and due to these intense shocks, he loses consciousness. He remembers a time when he went to the hospital for his daughter. Back then, they told him that his daughter needed a higher water classification so she could drink and be treated with pure water because her condition was deteriorating. At this rate, her legs might literally be amputated. He was very upset and then sat with his daughter for a while, feeling like he was dying from sadness over her. At that time, his daughter took a drink and put a sticker on it, telling him, "I will always save you with this sticker." She said, "I will always be with you." Eventually, he snaps out of it before his oxygen runs out. He quickly goes down to the communication device, disconnects, and replaces his power panel. The device works after Han struggles. Now, his oxygen is so low that returning to the station is impossible, and he faints. He regains consciousness and is in the station because Yong-soo rescued him. He goes to Ryu to see if the communication device worked. Ryu shocks him by saying after everything that happened, the communication device still didn't work. Then suddenly the computer receives a signal from another communication device. The computer informs them that the device is located in the third warehouse. Everyone is shocked to learn that the third warehouse is in Jisoo's section. They all head there, and at that moment, Commander Ham thoroughly searches Jisoo and finds a small communication device with him. He discovers messages sent by Jisoo to another organization, informing them of all the energy movements. As a result, everyone now knows that Jisoo was somehow betraying them. Han is not very concerned with all this talk and destroys the device, asking for any way to communicate with Choi after a while. Interestingly, he succeeds and manages to contact Choi, telling her everything that happened, including that 3 crew members died and that Jisoo was a spy. Choi becomes very upset and asks if there is a possibility of there being other traitors besides Jisoo in the crew. He replied and said it's possible, and he also told her someone is with him at the station, but he doesn't know who. Without hesitation, Choi asked him to capture the intruder by any means necessary and take Jisoo's sample. She said, "By the way, you know the importance of these samples, so act and retrieve them." He told her that to do that, she must give him a level 1 clearance so he can arrest him and go anywhere he wants. She agreed and gave him the clearance. Not only that, but he also informed her that there was no radioactive leak, by the way, nor did she know everything and hid this information from them. And to make sure she knows, if she hides any more information, it could put the entire team in danger, and he would cancel the mission to retrieve the samples and return home immediately. And with that, the call ended. At the same time, Song was still in the medical department seeking why Solkhan's death. Suddenly, she got an idea and acted on it. She cut herself and put her blood on a drop of water. That was on Solkhan's body. Shockingly, when she did that, the water started to multiply more and grew rapidly. This made them understand that when this water entered Solkhan's body, it kept reacting with his blood and multiplying until his entire body was filled with water, and the blood disappeared completely, leading to his death. Song quickly went afterwards to inform Han about everything she had discovered. By the way, Han was now out in the open and informed them that they needed to capture this intruder alive, in addition to retrieving the samples they wanted. Of course, they didn't like this at all because there were many more important issues, but there was no other solution. The important thing is that when Song went to Han, she told him that the sample they were currently after was actually water. And now we know, by the way, that Han actually knew from the beginning that the samples were water because the chief had informed him of all this. The researcher Won, Song's sister, was able to find this water on the moon's surface and named it lunar water. Currently, Han knows that the Balhae station was a laboratory where lunar water was being studied. If these researches succeed, all of humanity will be saved, and the water crisis on Earth will be resolved. Therefore, the information about these samples was kept secret. Then she shocked him by saying that the real reason for hiding this information is not because the water could save the planet, but because the water killed everyone who was at the Balhae station, just like it killed Soshin. It doesn't save anyone. At this moment, Angie continued and said that lunar water is exactly like a virus. It starts breaking down the human body until it kills them, leaving the entire body filled with water from within. They are stunned by this revelation, and Sunji, my friend, cries because her sister was the one conducting this research. She was the one behind the death of 117 people here 5 years ago. My friend, these experiments were designed to control the lunar water. If successful, the water crisis on Earth would have ended. As I told you, lunar water has no end because it keeps multiplying. With this, we now fully understand what happened here 5 years ago and how all 117 people died. Now, Han and Song are heading to the storage facility where all the data is kept. Han is opening the door with the level 1 clearance he got from Choi, and he and Song are entering. They find a huge amount of data and discover a vault full of plants. Quickly, they figure out how to proceed, and the team descends with Dado, who stays at the door just in case something happens. In general, when the team went down, they found the entire place, literally covered with plants. They also discovered a whole storage area full of lunar water samples. Based on this, they collected some samples and put them in a bag to take back to Earth. Meanwhile, Jung had taken Wan with him to search the area here and there. At that moment, they noticed something hidden among the trees. Suddenly, they started hearing screams. We find Wanda screaming loudly and asking what happened to him, a strange girl, but he managed to shoot her with the gun, so she ran away. By the way, the girl was really strange because she moved at an incredible speed, climbed pipes, and jumped from here to there, all in a fraction of a second. Naturally, the entire crew was terrified of her and were shooting at her, but she managed to escape quickly, got out of the basement, and hit something hard, causing her to faint. The lesson here is that amidst all this happening, Song noticed that a water sample had broken. She tells everyone and they all rush to escape. Remember what happened? Due to that broken sample, the water fills the place. Unfortunately, they leave, and in the basement, they lock it because he was already dead from the girl's attack. In general, they are transferring him to the medical section where Hwang cares for him, and also Ryo is giving him a blood transfusion from. Now, by the way, Song informed the others that this girl was the one who killed Dae-soo from the beginning, and she's doing this just to protect the lunar water stored here. After they learn all this, they talk to Choi and inform her that the intruder is actually a little girl. They tell her that this girl is wearing clothes from the lab, which means she could literally be one of the survivors. But Choi doesn't care about all this at all and insists that this mission is more important and that somehow they must capture her. She reassures him that support is on the way. Meanwhile, Han goes out to the others and informs them that they must capture this girl by any means. Now, he and the rest of the team start searching for her. The shock here is that when Ryu was sitting with Top for a blood transfusion, he took out the communication device and sent a message to another organization informing them of the situation. The organization asked him to kill all his friends with him and bring them the samples. Indeed, he is now preparing his gun to finish them off. And my friend, we also found out that Ryu is a traitor just like Jisoo. It's important that Ryu went out to Song and Wang and was about to kill them, but he didn't have the chance because the strange girl arrived just then. He quickly pointed his weapon at her and Wang told the commander over the radio to support them immediately. Ryu tried to shoot the girl, but she dodged the bullet quickly and attacked Ryu, knocking him to the ground. The girl started to calm down when she saw Song trying to give her a water sample, and she began to approach to take it. As she got closer to Song, she noticed that Song was injured and bleeding heavily. She was also shocked to find that the girl was wearing clothes with her sister's name on them. In general, the girl took the water sample and was trying to escape, but Ryu shot her, breaking the sample, which made the girl scream loudly. When the water hit her, it changed. A strange hole appeared in her face, like the gills of a fish. What was even stranger was that all the wounds on her body faded because of the water. She immediately found herself running and disappearing from the ventilation passages after a lot of the moon and the impossibility of money. The moon could kill her just as it could kill us. There's a big chance, by the way, that her body has antibodies against the lunar water, and there's also a big chance of that. If all this is true, she is a hope for all humanity, because we will be able to create antibodies against lunar water and use it. At this moment, she said that this girl, by the way, has amazing abilities and an incredible recovery speed. So my friend Han, when he heard all this, made a plan to use a sample of lunar water to lure this girl to a certain place and trap her there. By the way, Francois was talking to the organization that wanted the samples and agreed with them that he would take the sample and leave among them. Ryo, while he was talking, didn't notice to might have heard him. He quickly went and took the samples and started moving. As soon as to left, he quickly got up like a madman and kept trying to reach his wireless device to inform the crew about what Ryo intended to do. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it in time because Ryo came and killed him in cold blood. The girl is lured, and Sonk, by the way, is with her and has her eyes. Indeed, the girl comes to take her, and the plan seems to be going well. But Sonk feels sorry for the girl and was about to return her, but then the army came and the bear attacked. By the way, the girl tried to escape but couldn't, and the bear bit her leg. She kept screaming and clinging to her leg like crazy. Sonk tried to help her, but the bear attacked Sonk and injured her in the arm. She kept crying, and Rakiz also tried to help her, but this was also a mission for the bear. And when she tried to help her, she found written on her door Lona 73. When she saw Lona's daughter screaming, she said to sedate her so she wouldn't suffer. Immediately, the door opened, and she pulled her legs from under the door and hugged Lona afterward. By the way, they took her back to the command room. Meanwhile, Ra'i was in the command room and closed the gates. When Lona found out, she started running like crazy before the gates closed. When they closed, my friend Han and Jong were trapped, and even Hwang was locked in the medical section. As for Song, she followed Lona and entered the ventilation passage, continuing to walk behind her until she reached a small room. This room was supposed to be where Lona slept. At that moment, when Song found Lona scared, she gave her a piece of candy which she took. Then she went to look out the window, and from there, Song saw a picture of her sister. The only one left crying was my friend who didn't get trapped and escaped, which is Kim, and now he's going to command room. Meanwhile, Dr. Wang, locked up, searched for samples of photon lich, any samples, but instead found Tu's corpse in fridge. Shocked, she cries over radio, telling Han and everyone that Tu was killed by a bullet in his chest. They are upset and now ask her to go to the command room if she can. Kim arrived at the command room, and there, Ryu aimed at him, took his radio, and also knocked him down, shot his leg. He then asked him where Songji was. Kim said she went after a girl in a corridor. Hearing this, he opened the gates because he wants to take Luna. After that, Kim attacked Ryu, and the two of them kept fighting each other. In the end, Ryu shot Kim in the shoulder. Kim tried to escape and took a water sample with him to threaten Ryu, but Ryu didn't care and hit him with a gun, trapping him in place. He then watched as water poured out of Kim's mouth because, unfortunately, he was exposed to the water while holding it, and he died in the process. On the other hand, when Song saw the photos, she found that there was data on the device. She started thinking and went to the device to check this data. There was a video, by the way, showing her sister experimenting with moon water on a fish that was about to die. When the moon water touched the fish, it released a large amount of water, enough to fill the aquarium, and the fish was saved. That's how experiments work, my friend. When they were conducted on the fish, they succeeded, and thus, it was time for experiments on humans. Then they started experimenting with moon water on Luna number 1, and the experiment failed, resulting in her death. They continued with Luna 2, 3, 4, and 5 until they reached 37 and 54, and all of them failed. The only one on whom the experiment literally succeeded was Luna 73. At that time, Song was devastated, my friend, crying over what her sister was doing to helpless children. Consequently, Song decided to sacrifice the last sample of moon water and gave it to the "We will risk forming his wounds for us, like sulfur," a very pen from the wound on her leg. And of course, when she did that, all her colored wounds began to heal. Meanwhile, my friend Dr. Huang had gone down to the basement, and there she saw something shocking. She saw the bodies of the children who had been experimented on a long time ago, and she couldn't bear it. She sat on the ground and started screaming. Commander Hanba came to her, and they continued on their way to reach the control room. By the way, Ryu was still in the control room and noticed a malfunction in the station, and that was because the basement full of plants was... And he is now taking advantage of this opportunity to open the basement door to shut down the entire station and escape. But after a while, Wang and Hein reached the control room. At that moment, Commander Han was very upset when he saw Kim dead, and he quickly opened the remaining doors and returned to Huang, who was devastated over Kim. He left her there and walked away, asking her to go to the main laboratory. Meanwhile, he went to look for him. Unfortunately, Huang went to the place where Song and Luna were. At that time, Luna was very angry and tried to kill Luna because she killed Wan. He wanted to take revenge, but Song stood in front of him and told him that Luna wouldn't attack anyone else. She even suggested they talk to him over the radio and asked him to take Luna and Song to the main laboratory. She emphasized that he shouldn't kill Luna because she is very, very important. John managed to control his anger, took them all, and left. After all that happened, Rinny reached the room where Song had been, but of course, he didn't find anyone there. At that moment, he was obviously upset and left to continue searching. Suddenly, Commander Han appeared in front of him, confronted him, and they exchanged a few blows. However, overall, Commander Han overpowered him and asked why he did that from the beginning. At that point, he told him, terrified, "You don't know what happened here, nor do you know what the lunar water is." In some way, he took advantage of Han being distracted and stabbed him in the arm with a knife. Then he ran and pointed a gun at Han. Suddenly, my friend, the ceiling started dripping lunar water on him. So you could say that Ryu was infected, and after a while he would die because he ran far away knowing this. The story goes that the water had spread throughout the station at that time. Now we recall together when Ryu, terrified, told Han that he didn't know exactly what happened here. So my friend, let's find out what happened. And before I continue, we need to go back in time a bit, exactly 5 years. At that time, we see alarms blaring everywhere, and the research team is running around terrified because there's a malfunction in the station's temperature control system. By the way, among these researchers was Wan, a Song's sister. The important thing is that when the researchers tried to escape, they couldn't because they found out that the government had sent space troops and closed all the exit gates. They literally imprisoned all the researchers, and at that time, they were already infected. They locked up 117 researchers inside the station and left them to die. Lieutenant Ryu and the government did this under orders from Choi, who wanted to monopolize the lunar water for herself. That's why she eliminated 117 researchers before the matter of lunar water reached the whole world. So, sir, now we unfortunately understand everything that happened here, and thus we return to the present. We started to see Song and the team in the main lab waiting for Commander Han. Hong, by the way, was very angry and shouting because the government was trying to cover up the disaster with the water and the 17 researchers. Even Song now realized why Choi specifically chose her for this mission, because she knew that Song wouldn't say anything about what happened. The point is, the chief researcher was the one overseeing the deadly experiments conducted here. After that, Commander Han arrived and informed them that there was, in fact, a severe water leak in the station. The strange thing, my friend, is that amidst all this, Song started to feel dizzy and realized she was infected. So she quickly went and locked herself in another room and literally started spewing waterfalls of water from her mouth. Outside, they were going crazy when they saw her struggling for her life. Song was indeed starting to drown, but thankfully nothing happened to her. Why? It's all because of the bite she received on her hand, if you remember, when the antibodies transferred to her and saved her. Another piece of good news, my friend, is that the rescue ship has now reached the moon's orbit, meaning there are people who can catch up with them. Currently, Mr. Kim contacted Han and they learned that the rescue ship has arrived. He also told him that they noticed another strange ship about to land on the moon. So, Commander Han asked him to delay the landing of the ship until they escape. As we know, Han asked Kim to take any action against Choi, because they don't want to monopolize the lunar water in Luna. Mr. Kim reassured him and said that he would arrange everything with many officials and would expose Choi significantly. From here, Song suggested that she take Luna to the Space Biology Institute and not return to Earth until she can find something to solve the lunar water problem and find a solution for all of humanity. Kim and Atom agreed to this proposal, and quickly, they prepared themselves to move at 1 o'clock. By the way, they are trying to put a certain device on her leg. But she is scared, yet Song calms her. Now they are putting on the color of this device, and it helped with the idea that Lun noticed the sticker on, or Han's suit. We will notice this as she took the sticker and gave it to her. They kept going to exit the station. Lun could hear the sound of water and started running, so they could follow her through the safe path. Indeed, this is what happens, and now Lun is running. Everyone is running after her, and the water is also chasing them. After a while of running, everyone reaches the entrance of Gate 7, where they encounter Ryu, who is dying and crying because he regrets everything he did in the past. Similarly, he screams like a madman until the water is about to enter every part of his body. So Kongji moves quickly and brings him a bullet, but Ryu shoots him in the side before he dies. So everyone enters through Gate 7 now, and they quickly start preparing themselves and putting on oxygen tanks. But Yong wasn't able to, and Han tried to help him as much as he could, but Yong eventually dies. Han cries over him and tries to hide his sadness from the others so as not to discourage them. He quickly goes to activate the pressure device, but at that moment, the device refuses to work. He decided to sacrifice himself and went out to operate it from the outside himself. When Song saw this, she kept crying and begged him to come back quickly, but he couldn't make it. He told Song before he drowned, "Take care of Luna and always stay with her." After that, he drowned, and my friend Huang came and quickly took Song to get out of the station as fast as possible before they drowned too. The shock here is that as they were leaving, Luna wasn't with them, and the bigger shock was that she had taken off her suit before leaving. Song was going crazy over her and kept searching for her, crying until she saw her standing normally on the surface of the moon without a suit or even oxygen. At that moment, Luna went to Commander Han, who was still alive, to return his consciousness. When Commander Han saw her, he cried, and his suit malfunctioned. But thankfully, the rescue ship arrived just in time and saved them all, including Commander Han.